The Internationals Round 3 wrap-up. Hi, I'm Paul, the guy behind DrivingMaul, your best place for rugby predictions and opinion. And I promise you, I have only just opened up my Boundary Red beer. I have not. This is not number 2 or number 3. This is the first one. That's one sip. So what we're going to do, we're going to go through all of the internationals from the weekend. We're going to go through all the Tier 1 and Tier 2 internationals. We'll also wrap up the Rugby World Cup Repechage qualification, and also we'll look at some of the women's games that happened at the weekend as well. So, first off, we had a couple of... so Dragons hosted Russia and beat them 38-24. So Dragons had a couple of games against Tier 2 opposition and have done very well in this break, let's be honest. Russia obviously beat Namibia quite comfortably earlier. You've got to worry about Namibia, and we'll talk about that later as we get further down, as to how they're going to go to the World Cup next year. Romania 5, the United States 31. So the USA obviously had that poor result against the New Zealand Maori, also the Maori All Blacks, to kick things off. But since then have won their next 2 games. They'll be going on to play Ireland next. Obviously that is going to be a tough one for them. Uruguay then played Fiji in England, and the score was 7-68. So Fiji obviously very comfortable winners in that game. This is being sandwiched between their game against Scotland last weekend, which they lost, and then they're off to play France next. So Fiji having a very good schedule, you've got to say, in this November window, playing 2 Tier 1 nations as well as Uruguay as well. Italy 7, Australia 26. On the face of it, you would suggest that looked like a kind of fairly comfortable win for Australia. But there have been a lot of calls saying this is one of the worst Australian sides I've seen in a long time from not the players, the actual individual players. They've got quality players there, it's just they're not performing as a team. And whilst it was 7-26, Italy had 2 tries disallowed before Australia scored. So I say, while this one looks on the face of it a comfortable Australia win, you've got to say that it really wasn't until it was only 14-0 at half time. It really was. So it wasn't. This was quite a difficult one for Australia. And as Mr. Rugby World Cup says in there, please let's move on from discussing Australia. Yeah, it has been a poor. They're having a poor time, and they're off to play England next weekend. Next up, Georgia face Samoa 27-19. So Georgia coming off the back of that loss to Italy. Samoa coming off the back of a loss, and I've got blank who they played last weekend, but I know they lost again. That was United States, that's right, by a single point. So Samoa, you've got to say, whilst they did have qualified for the World Cup by beating Germany twice, Germany have shown that that they're not really up to it, and they lost to Canada at the weekend and are now out of the possible qualification for the Rugby World Cup. So it was no great feat beating them. Samoa really are in a bit of trouble at the moment. You've got to say, Georgia 27, obviously get themselves back on track after Italy defeat. Yes, they are a strong Tier 2 side, but they're definitely not a Tier 1 side yet. Still have not beaten one Tier 1 team ever. Wales 74, Tonga 24. And you'd say on the face of this one that this was an absolute annihilation, but it wasn't as bad as the numbers are making out. Sure, Wales ran out to a 24-0, 24-3 lead in the first quarter of the game, but Tonga came back and it was 22-all just after half time, and then things kind of slipped away from them. Obviously, after that, where from 46 minutes onwards, they didn't score any more points, and it just it just ran away from them at that point. So Wales are showing themselves to be a decent side in this competition at international level, but Tonga are not as bad as that result suggests. They are a team on the up. very much the second strongest side in the Pacific Islands, giving Fiji a good run for their money. So it's between those two, with Samoa in a pretty distant third place, I must say. Spain then hosted Namibia 34-13. As I say, Namibia now have lost to Russia, lost to Spain. I mean, Spain aren't at the Rugby World Cup. You've got to worry about them at the Rugby World Cup. Now, they have got, or they are giving, in some ways, Italy the easiest possible schedule they can. They're in with New Zealand, South Africa, Italy, and the Repechage winners, which we'll get onto that in a second. We got to say Italy, with Namibia possibly being the weakest side in the Rugby World Cup and the Repechage winner, Italy really have got themselves the easiest possible schedule they could to make sure they get a third place. If they're in any of the other groups, there would be a chance of them not qualifying for the next Rugby World Cup automatically, which is just a bit of a... So Italy have been very lucky in that. England played Japan. It finished 35-15. So again, another one of these ones where you could say, oh, look, comfortable-ish win for England. But at half-time, it was 10-15. Japan were winning at half-time. So Jamie George got himself yellow carded in that first half as well, which obviously didn't help matters. But this, as I say, England trailing at half-time. Sure, they did. It wasn't their first choice team, and it wasn't Wales' first choice team either. You'll see quite a few teams weren't first choice teams that were put out this weekend. But even so, you've got to say that that England, whilst they came good in the end, will be a bit concerned by that first half performance. The Mr. World Cup says the only way Australia can win this weekend, England must play their worst. Then it'll be even Stevens. It's going to be. Well, obviously, England had a good record against Australia over the last couple of years with Eddie Jones, and this. This weekend's game against between England and Australia is one of the highlights of the weekend. But we'll see how they can go. I say England not in prime form. Yes, they got that 1 point loss to the Māori All Blacks. To the All Blacks. Yes, they beat South Africa the previous weekend, and they have come good against Japan. But it did take them definitely the second half. They'd lose that first half. We then have Scotland 20, South Africa 26. This was this would be a very disappointing game for Scotland because at home they've been going very well. This was their kind of opportunity to push themselves into that sort of top five or potential contenders kind of, or sort of dark horse Rugby World Cup kind of reckoning, but coming up short against South Africa. South Africa have now had three very close games. Or was it a 1 point game against England, a 1 point game against France or something like that, and now a 6 point game against Scotland. So, sorry, 3 point game against France. So whilst the competitiveness of these internationals has been fantastic over this window, the one game I would say, if you're going to go watch highlights for, is this one, because there were some cracking tries by both teams in this one. So go and go and check out the Scotland South Africa one, because as I say, some cracking tries and a close game up and as well. South Africa, say, just pipping it in the end. Again, it wasn't close. Was Chile hosting the Māori All Blacks, and that finished 0-73. I'll be honest, I've not watched the highlights of this one yet, but yeah, clearly the Māori All Blacks won that one very comfortably, and with Carvalho. Not Carvalho, sorry, gone blank as to Brad Weber, sorry, having sort of excused himself from the tour to get fit for next season. It wasn't even a full-strength Māori All Black side either. Game of the weekend, and one we'll go into and dissect in detail. Mr. World Cup says South Africa on the rise, so Scotland should hold their heads up high. Yes, but Scotland are at home, and I say they're a team on the rise as well. They were. I had them down as favourites to win that game. Game of the weekend, or game of the year, was Ireland versus New Zealand. Ireland winning 16-9. For a full rundown of that, go check out my post-match reaction show on the All Blacks edition Ireland, fully deserved winners on the day, played better than New Zealand. New Zealand clearly not clicking at the moment as they're changing their style, and Ireland playing some very good rugby and really knowing how their team clicks and how it works. They are going to go into the Rugby World Cup as one of the serious contenders. Even though Ireland have never got past the quarterfinals, this isn't the same Irish team we've seen in previous years by any stretch. Moving down, Paraguay then hosted the South American 15 and lost 22-73. I'm not going to dwell on that one as I don't really know anything about that game, to be honest with you. And then France, Argentina finished 28-13. Now, again, another one where you might say, yes, this one looked rather comfortable for France. That's what I thought when I saw the score. But then when if you look at the this one, Argentina were leading this game just after half time, 11-13, and then it slipped away from them after that. So another game that was very competitive, right up and then slipped away, a bit like that Wales-Tonga one. Obviously, France didn't run away with it quite so well. Argentina, forcing the game towards the end, made a few mistakes, which also saw the score blow out a little bit. But this was, much more competitive than perhaps the scoreline suggests in this one between France and Argentina. We have another full round of games next weekend, and I will give you my predictions tomorrow night. So do check back on the DrivingMaul Rugby Predictions channel for predictions across all of those games. The two that obviously step out are going to be England versus Australia and Wales versus South Africa. I'm going to try and do live post-match reaction to both of those games. Moving on to the repechage, the two games this weekend. So Hong Kong beat Kenya 42-17 with a try bonus point to keep their hopes alive of qualification. And Canada beat Germany 29-10 with a bonus point to cement their place at the top of the table. So the table now reads Canada on 10 points, Hong Kong on 5, Germany on 4, and Kenya on 0. So Germany and Kenya are unable to qualify from this competition, and they will face each other in the final round. And then Hong Kong will face Canada in the final round. Now, all Canada need, again, is 1 point from that game. So a losing bonus point, or even a try bonus point, will be enough for them to go through. Hong Kong obviously looking at trying to keep them to less than 3 tries and scoring and winning it by scoring 4 tries and winning the game by more than 7 points. Now, I'm not sure what the deciding factor is. If Hong Kong get 10 points and equal Canada onto the table, but at the moment you've got to say that Canada with 65 points difference, if it's come down to points difference, they'll win it. But if it comes down to what's the result between the two teams, then Canada could be it. But Canada should go through. You're expecting them to. I mean, from what I hear, Hong Kong were complacent against Germany and rested a few players. So I think they're better than their result against Germany suggested. But you've got to say Canada do go into this one as favourites to qualify for the Rugby World Cup. Finally, there were a number of women's international games over the weekend. The highlight, which was was France versus New Zealand, or versus the Black Ferns, which finished 30-27. So a fantastic result by France there to avenge their 0-14 loss from the weekend before. So two good games, obviously very different games to the previous weekend where it was very wet. Ireland lost to the USA 10-19. Now this is you remember the USA got thumped at home by New Zealand 6-67, and then lost to England 57-5, which I think shows you that you've got basically New Zealand, England, France at that top level, and then a bit of a gap down to everybody else, because England beats Canada 27-19. So it looks like sort of Canada and the USA might be in that next sort of group. There were some other games as well, but I must admit I don't have a record of those, unfortunately. And England play Ireland this coming weekend. So that gets you up to speed with all of the games from the weekend. I'd say it was an absolute feast of rugby. We've got another feast coming up with those 2 games between England, Australia, and Wales, South Africa being the two key ones. Scotland, Argentina will also be a cracker as well. If we're looking for other interesting games, Ireland versus the United States, how far have the United States come? Obviously, we're not expecting them to. It'd be interesting to compare their score there to the score against the Māori All Blacks. Except that you see Ireland will probably put out a second string team. You got Italy versus New Zealand, and Edward Ellis says, will the All Blacks field a second team against Italy? On Wednesday night during the All Blacks session, we'll go through and we'll actually name the 23 that we think will be selected. But you've got to say that players like Whitelock and Reid are looking tired, and you'd expect them to be rested. I think we're going to see pretty much a second string team against Italy to finish off the tour. And then that France-Fiji game, I say Fiji really having a good set of fixtures. You've got to say that one, though, they'll probably be a step too far for them, but it'll be interesting to see what happens in that one as well. The other one actually that's from a tier 2 clash that could be interesting is Georgia versus Tonga. As I say, Tonga definitely on the up. So where I guess, how do they rate against each other? Now obviously it's in Tbilisi, so it's a home game for Georgia, which will obviously be helpful for them. So yes, I'll give you my predictions to all these games tomorrow night. So check that out on DrivingMaul, the rugby predictions. Thank you very much, and catch you tomorrow.